What's up everybody, Jake from P3 here with this beautiful 10th Gen Accord. This is our second Honda product and the Honda community has been beyond accepting of our products. We are super happy to bring them to you. Let's get right into this install. We try to design our gauges to be a pretty straightforward product, and thankfully, so is this install. The first thing we always want to do before we start an install, however, is to test the gauge. And that's really simple. If you've got our V3 OBD2 gauge, you're going to have three main components. You've got your display either in the vent already, or as you see it here, not in the vent, and this is going to install right in the top of the vent here like that. We've got our control box, and then we've got our harness. So to test it, we just simply want to connect the harness to the control box, and then we also want to connect the display cable to the control box. And then we're just going to simply plug into the OBD2 port down here. Once you connect the OBD2 port, you might see some dots go across the bottom of the screen. Go ahead and start your engine. It might have to think for a minute while it pairs. And then it's going to pop up with some data. Make sure it's actually responding. Jump over to RPM. There, we can see that we've got good data coming across the OBD2 port, so we are good to proceed. So let's unplug this and set it aside for now. Like I mentioned before, this is a very easy install. You actually won't even need any tools to remove the vent from the dash. We're just going to use our hands to pull these panels off in a specific order. Starting with this lowest panel, which I guess it's like a knee panel, shin panel, something like that. Just pull straight towards you on the bottom, like so. And then we're going to come up top here and also pull straight towards you on both sides at the same time. And we're going to let this sit loose like that. It'll be just fine. Next up, we're going to do this panel here that's got your trip button and then your cluster dimmer. And we're going to pull that straight out as well. And that also just comes off. You will want to watch, most of these are all held in with these little clips with these little blue pieces. And one of these blue pieces may fall off. If it does, it's not broken, it just fell off. Literally just pick it up, snap it back on, good to go. Now we need to kind of push this side panel out. It is bolted in at the bottom, but it's pretty flexible, so we don't need to fully remove it. It's just clipped into the vent, and we want to disconnect it from the vent so we can pull the vent out. So push straight out right here, like that, and then we just want that loose. So we've got the lower panel, this middle panel, and now the side panel. They're all loose, and now we can pull out on the vent. The vent does have some pretty bulky bracketing on the bottom. That's kind of good for a handle. So just kind of pull straight out on the bottom there, and it pops right out. Now we're ready to take this over to our workbench and install the display into the vent. We're now at the workbench, and our goal here is just to simply get this display installed in place of these top two slats in your vent. Pretty easy process. All you'll need is a Phillips screwdriver, maybe a little pry tool, a little tiny screwdriver, flat blade. Won't need those, and maybe a little set of cutters. We're not actually going to cut anything, it just helps separate some of these parts a little easier. First step is these three screws on the back of the vent. You got 1, 2, and 3. We just need to take the top one all the way out, and then we just need to loosen the bottom two. You can take them out if you want, but you don't have to. Just take them almost all the way out. About like that. Same for that one. And now we'll take our little screwdriver, release that top clip right there, and release this other top clip. And then this should roll right off. Just like that. So we can set this aside. Now we want to remove all 4 horizontal slats as an assembly. Basically you have your 4 slats, and then you've got a bar going down this side and a bar going down this side. And if we pry on one side here, like that, we can pull the entire thing out as a unit. And this stays together pretty well, so like it's not gonna fall apart instantly on you. And then we want to remove just the top 2 slats. If you get this spun around and you're not familiar with it and you don't know which way it goes, they actually have numbering on the back here. 1 dot, 2 dots, 3 dots, and then 4 dots. So 1 is going to be your top one. So if you lose track, just know that 1 dot goes on the top. We can flip this around, and this is where I like to take cutters because they have this fine edge here, and it just helps go in here and separate you're not even cutting, you're just very gently applying pressure as if you were going to cut. And then right there, we've got those two top slats disconnected from that slider bar. And now we want to do the same to get them loose over on this side. And now we can just take those out and set them aside. They're not broken. We didn't have to cut anything. It just comes out kind of like an erector set. If you want to set these aside, maybe use a plastic baggie from your OBD2 harness. You can keep these if you lease your car, if you plan on putting this back to stock one day and you want to save these. Good idea to throw those in that baggie, throw them right in your glove box. Now, this display has two tabs on the right side that are going to install in these two holes where the vent slats came out. On this side, you'll see there are no tabs, and that's because this is just going to sit right on top of this side bracket. It doesn't actually plug into it. So go ahead and install the two tabs into the holes on the right side, and then set that side on top. You can set that down for a second. Now we want to prep our vent. Right now you can't see light through it because the flap in the back is shut. We want to open the flap like that. And then we are going to route our cable through this far left side all the way on the bottom as well. So we don't want to go above that flap in the back. We want to be on the bottom of it. So take your cable, and we want to make sure the pink side is on the bottom. The pink side should be down, and we don't want this all twisted up. This cable's pretty thin and flexible, and it's very robust as long as it's not all twisted up. So let's feed that through left side, far bottom, and we might need to kind of wedge it through, but that's got a little play there, so we can get it through there, and then just feed it out the back, pull it out the back, keep your assembly together with your other hand. We're gonna pull all our slack through, and then this part's pretty crucial as well. We wanna make sure that this fork needs to split this shaft here on the center vent slat. So as you're putting this back in, make sure that fork is lined up, or else you're gonna lose your side-to-side control. So we're gonna set this in place and make sure that fork gets lined up, which can be a little tricky sometimes, but we're good here. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it's in there, it's good. So we'll go ahead and snap this all into place. Start with the left side, just kind of work it in until it snaps in. Don't force it. And then the right side can follow. These are pretty rubbery as well. They're kind of flexible, so they're kind of nice to be able to work with. You're not gonna break anything on this. It's a pretty strong vent. And so now you'll see this left side's kind of loose. That's okay. It's gonna get pinched into place with our trim. And then we wanna come around the back and make sure our cable is over to this side of the vent, and then just pinch it around the back. And while we're pinching here, we want to close the vent flap like that. And now that's gonna hold this cable in place for us, so we don't have to worry about it flopping around in the backside. Now, pinch the left side of your display with your hand and just make sure you have side-to-side motion. Make sure your cable's not blocking that side-to-side motion, which we're in good shape. And now we can kind of hook these screws around the bottom like that. And then we're gonna roll the top into place and make sure our brackets snap in nicely. Which on this one, see, I went above, so I need to back that back out. And then make sure it gets under that bracket, and it'll snap into place like that. And then we can start this screw on the top as well. Go ahead and tighten that screw down. And you don't have to kill these with torque, just make sure they're nice and snug. Get the bottom one and the other bottom one. So at this point, we can do a double check, make sure your display is kind of in place right, make sure you got your side-to-side motion there. Make sure your flap can still turn on and off. Make sure your cable's in place. Pinch that in place like so, and then shut the flap after you've checked everything is good, like that. And now this is actually ready to install in the car. You can run this with it pinched in the foam just like so. It's not gonna hurt anything. When you get these pre-installed from us, you might see that there's a little notch cut here and that it's glued under the foam. We just do that as like an extra little step because you're getting an extra vent. But on a factory vent, this is gonna be perfectly fine. And there we go. That's ready to go back in the car. So let's jump back in the car, get this put back in the dash. We are back in the car with our display installed in the vent, ready to go in the dash. We've also got our control box and harness here as well. So we'll set those there. First thing we want to do is drop this display cable down through the dash and just let it come out the side here, just like that. And then we're gonna go ahead and feed this back in and snap it into place. All these clips are pretty strong. They have a positive lock, and so it's kind of a satisfying like snap, you know, when they go back in. We can now go ahead and snap this side panel back in. Just make sure the clips are lined up with the slots they go into and just press them in. Get that nice snap again. Now we're gonna do this top panel here. So satisfying. Before we put this one in, we'll go ahead and plug the display cable into the control box. And then cable routing is going to be up to you, up to your personal preference. I always say in most of these videos that we're taking gauges in and out of our cars constantly for development and research and testing and all that. I never take the time to really nicely bundle these up, wrap them in foam tape and all that. And sometimes our customers take some great time wrapping those up. They look great. But for the sake of this video, I'm just gonna kind of bundle this all together. The way you run the cables is up to you, but this is about as straight of a shot as you get. And I've never had rattles so far, just kind of tucking this stuff in. Plus you got a nice big foam pad here to absorb all those potential rattles. And I can literally see the OBD2 connector right now, so I'm just gonna go ahead and plug that wire in. You might see some dots on the screen when you do that, each time you plug it in. And then I'm gonna go ahead and snap this lower panel back into place, starting with the top. And there it is. That install is complete. Let's go ahead and fire the engine up. You'll see some dots coming across the screen. They may go slow or fast, depending on if it's paired with the network before. Ours is already paired. So right now we're looking at vacuum there at idle. And it is responding with throttle. And we'll jump over to RPM. Get a little RPM input on there. Nice. And then we get to do the super satisfying plastic peel. Unless you don't. Sometimes I leave that plastic on and just to bother people, and then in 3 years I can pull it off and it'll be brand new underneath. To each their own, you know what I'm saying? So that wraps up this install. Super easy. This probably ranks first or second on how hard it is. But yeah, really easy install. No tools required. We love these Honda Accords. If you have any questions about this install or comments or anything, please leave a comment below. We really appreciate your input. Please click the notification bell, subscribe to the channel, so that way you know when we put out new videos. We're working on a lot of new install videos and other kind of entertainment content. Tell a friend about P3, we really appreciate it. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you in the next one.